All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely reframe a topic that honestly touches almost every single family, yet is almost always misunderstood. We are talking about aging alone. We'll discover why our baseline assumptions about it are totally upside down, and more importantly, how we can turn all that anxiety into empowering clarity.
Take a second right now and picture what instantly comes to mind when you hear the phrase aging alone. If you're like most of us, you probably just pictured a really sad, isolated life, right? You might picture someone with no family, no friends, sitting in a quiet room, totally disconnected from the world. We've been conditioned to equate aging alone with abandonment. But as our source material reveals, that definition is just entirely too narrow, and frankly, it's missing the point entirely.
But here's the thing. There is a massive contrast between the myth and the reality here. The myth tells us that aging alone is all about being unloved or solitary. But the reality? It's much more structural. Solo aging isn't necessarily about lacking affection. It's really about navigating later life without a default built-in caregiver system. It's about living without that assumed safety net that earlier generations just kind of took for granted. You know, you can be deeply loved, highly social, and still be a solo ager.
Think of a later life kind of like an apartment building during a massive power cut. Everyone is in the exact same dark building, but some apartments have a heavy-duty backup generator, some have a little battery inverter, some are relying on their neighbors knocking on the door, and some just have to scramble in the dark to improvise. The building, the aging process itself, is the exact same for everyone, but the backup system is fundamentally different. Aging alone is simply the reality of living without that automatic heavy-duty generator.
So we absolutely need to anchor this crucial point right now. Aging alone is entirely about the structure of your support. It's not about the physical presence of people sitting in your living room. The real question we should be asking isn't, is this person alone? The questions that actually matter are, who helps when health suddenly changes? Who notices the early warning signs? Who steps in to make those really complex decisions if someone cannot?
Okay, so why is this actually happening? Well, solo aging doesn't just happen because someone made one bad life choice or simply forgot to plan. No way. We have to move past seeing this as just an abstract personal label. It is, in fact, the direct result of massive, invisible societal forces that are completely rewriting the map of adulthood and family life.
There are basically 5 massive forces driving this shift, and when you stack them up, the picture is just crystal clear. First off, families are smaller and they're no longer automatic, reliable support systems. Second, longevity. We're living much longer, which is amazing, but it creates a longer period where health, money, or mobility can fluctuate. Third, adulthood is highly mobile today. Your kids or siblings might love you deeply, but they might live 3 time zones away, and distance turns support into a massive coordination challenge. Fourth, we're taught to be fiercely independent our whole lives, which works great right up until we actually need help. And finally, broad social changes, like higher divorce rates and lower marriage rates, mean the old assumptions are just way less reliable. This really captures the tension of modern life perfectly. Picture a tree grown in a pot. For years, it looks incredibly healthy because it's nicely contained and self-sufficient, kind of like that fierce, stubborn independence we all pride ourselves on in our 30s and 40s. But if it's never replanted into a larger space, eventually, the roots just run out of room. The tree didn't fail. Its environment just didn't grow with it. The independence we cultivate in our youth is exactly like that pot. It works beautifully into later life when a life organized entirely around independence absolutely must adapt to the reality of interdependence.
Right, so what does this silent squeeze actually look like in our daily lives? Because from the outside, independence can hide a massive amount of invisible effort. It's the constant, quiet background work, tracking the bills, remembering appointments, managing medications, making high-stakes decisions. When you don't have a built-in support system, all of those tasks concentrate heavily onto one person's shoulders.
And this leads to a pretty dangerous gap. We so often confuse emotional support with practical support. Having someone tell you, hey, I care about you, is amazing for the soul, but it really doesn't help you fill out complex medical paperwork. Having friends who say, call me anytime, sounds like a solid safety net, but what you actually need is someone who can practically drive you to the hospital on a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. and sit with you for 6 hours. The solo agent crisis happens when emotional support is high, but practical and crisis support are dangerously thin.
And when that practical backup is thin, we hit what the source calls the shrinking margin of error. Just look at how this chain reaction plays out. It rarely starts with some dramatic collapse. It starts super small. Step 1. A solo ager misses a prescription refill.
because getting to the pharmacy was just a bit too tiring that day. Step 2. That missed refill leads to a minor dizzy spell and a sudden health setback. Step 3. That setback leads to a loss of mobility, and even more importantly, a loss of confidence. A lack of practical backup means tiny hiccups can cascade into major life vulnerabilities.
Now the scary part? These 4 specific pressures, practical, health, social, and emotional, they don't just politely wait in line and happen one at a time. They hit the solo ager simultaneously. The practical load of tracking everything merges right into health vulnerabilities. At the exact same time, the social thinness, that stark realization that help isn't guaranteed, spikes your emotional strain because you're holding it all together entirely by yourself. It transforms a series of standard, small daily tasks into an overwhelming, heavy burden.
Which brings us to a really critical concept. The true emotional reality of the solo ager isn't just loneliness. The precise word for it is exposure. Exposure is this constant background vigilance. It's the nervous system literally stuck on high alert. It's the heavy knowledge of carrying every single decision alone and knowing there's no obvious automatic fallback if you slip up. You can be the most sociable, well-liked person in your entire neighborhood and still feel completely exposed. But here is exactly where we turn the corner. We are going to take all this heavy emotional load, all of this exposure, and transform it into empowering clarity. Because once you see solo aging not as this terrifying inevitability, but as a structural gap, you can stop worrying and start designing.
So if you take away just one crucial point from this explainer today, let it be this profound realization. The system is the problem, not the person. If you see an older adult struggling to manage alone, they aren't failing at independence. They aren't stubborn or unlucky. It's just a mismatch between modern life and an outdated support design. The map of life has changed, and they're simply using an old set of directions.
Okay, so how do we actually fix the map? Well, we have to proactively redesign our support systems. And it starts by prioritizing practical, dependable help, meaning actual logistics over vague promises of love. We need to build simple, repeatable, low-friction routines because routines are what absorb the shock of unexpected changes. We've got to completely let go of outdated assumptions about family just magically showing up and replace them with structured, intentional plans. We need to treat later life not as some sort of decline, but as an active, engaging design challenge.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely vital question to ponder. Is your support structure ready to absorb change? Whether you're looking at your own future or the lives of your aging parents, I really want you to look at this not with fear, but as a solvable puzzle. The building might lose power, but you have the ability, right now, to decide exactly what kind of backup generator you're going to wire in. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to take this question and start drawing up your own blueprints today.